Hello everyone, greeting from Finland. I'm really happy to be here today. At the moment here in Finland, the temperature is something around -2 degrees and it's a little bit snowing. But today we are gonna talk a little bit about around the topic of importance of happiness and the ways to supporting the child's overall well-being. My name is Olli Kamunen and I will give first a short introduction about the topics of today, and then we are going to go deeper of the understanding the child's overall well-being and how to support it. But in order to you to orientate for today's session, I will open up a little bit about the context. So we'll firstly go through about a little bit about who I am and why I'm here to talk about this topic. And what kind of like sources the motivation for me has been telling and lecturing about self-love, like about overall well-being. After that, I open a little bit about the concept of the motivation and then also the concept of the self-determination theory. And then I briefly introduce about our company in the end of the session. Okay, so I will start by a little bit introducing myself. As I said, my name is Olli Kamunen. I'm an early childhood education expert and also a father of the 3 daughters from Finland. I have been working in the field of education for 20 years or so. I have been working in the primary schools and also been working in the kindergarten as well. I started my career to work as an assistant teacher in the kindergarten, and I did it while I was studying in the university. After my graduation, I started working as a teacher. Then I worked as a preschool teacher, and like the past 7 years, I have been working as a director in a kindergarten. Also, during these past years, I have been trained teachers and parents in many countries about Finnish early childhood education and also about the primary education. While I have doing this training in different countries, I have access to the foreign cultures by peeking into the local daycare centers and schools and having great discussion among those who's working in early childhood education and in primary education, and also with ordinary parents. Currently, I'm doing a research and studying in the Jyväskylä University here in Finland. I'm deeply into the education and learning new things about my own as well. And also we have been established an education export company, which I shortly introduce at the end of this presentation. Okay, so let's go more for today's topic. And today we are going to talk about happiness and well-being of the children. My interest towards this subject has been raised from the 2 different sources. The first one is, as some of you might know, according to the United Nations Happiness Report, Finland is the happiest country in the world for the 4th year in a row. Finland has been ranked the first in the annual World Happiness Report published by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network in 2018 and 2019, 2020 and 2021. In this happiness study, the happiness criteria are individuals' feeling of happiness, countries' gross domestic product, life expectancy, friendship relations, money spent on the charity, non-corruption of the administration, and freedom to decide your own affairs, for example. And even though this United Nations Happiness Report is not that much about individuals' happiness or education or teaching, and there isn't quite much about children's happiness. As an educator and father by my heart, I have been interested to find out how much the education and how much the parents can support the children's happiness and what kind of way they are. Because we might easily think that the main task, for example, the schools or the early education, is to provide children with the knowledge and the skills, what they need later in the working life and in life in general. But also here in Finland, it is written on the curriculum that the main task of the early childhood education is to support the development, learning, and the well-being of the child. So there must be something that we are supporting the children's well-being here in Finland. And this has been one of the things that I have been interested to find out. Another interest in this topic has strayed from my journeys that I have been training the teachers. I have been working in the USA and also in Tunis. I have been working in Vietnam and in China, for example. I have also trained teachers in India as well for several months. I have heard lots of questions about supporting the child's optimal growth and about educating and teaching children, and then also about parenting. Many of these questions have been repeated regardless of the country or the culture. And it has been a pleasure to discuss education and parenting with a variety of people and notice how universal educating and teaching the children is. We share the similar kind of like challenges and delights and foremost the same love for our children. There has been one thing where we have faced different ways to see things. And I always have been thinking that my main task as a parent and as educator as well is to raise happy children. Happy children who are doing well in their life and they are satisfied in their life. But some of the parts in the world, the parents and educator have said that they want to raise the children to be successful, to be good in the schools, to get a good workplace, to get good grades. And this is something that I have started to think that do we parents and educators, do we have to choose between the child's happiness and success? Can we just raise happy and successful children? And if so, how do we do it? How can we support the child's optimal growth without giving too much pressure for the children? And making sure at the same time that we have to keep the boundaries. We have to keep also the freedom. And remember to give enough love for our children. So this children's well-being is some of the topics that have raised to my mind when I started thinking about how to support their well-being and happiness. According to the World Health Organization, individual well-being can be divided into 3 different areas. These 3 different areas are physical health, the mental health, and the social health. And all of these areas play a role in determining the health and well-being of the one individual. And what is interesting in this model is that even if there are differences or illness in one of these 3 areas, the well-being of the other areas bring a person to experience success and ability to function. The first is physical health. It means the well-being of the body. It means that your body is functioning properly and the heart can pump blood and your lungs are working and these kind of things. And you don't have any sort of like a disease. The mental health part means the well-being of the mind and the self-esteem. The regulation of the emotions and naming of the different emotions are part of this mental health. And then also the good self-esteem helps the well-being of the mind. The last part is the social health, which means the functional and meaningful relationship. Social skills, for example, listening and discussion skills, conversation skills, and for example, perseverance are important skills for social health. And it's important because no one of us is meant to live alone. So well-being and happiness have often been linked together. We might think that if somebody is doing well and have been taking of one's mental and social and physical health, he is also happy. And this thought is quite useful and it gives a quite clear picture for also to think about child's well-being and how to support it. But still, taking of care of children's well-being, it might seem an easy task. But how come in nearly every part of the world, be it through even rich or poor countries, the mental health conditions cause significant suffering for children and young people, and they are top cause of death, disease, and disability, especially for older children. And there's kind of like new research made that shows that also many rich nations still have room for improvement when it comes to ensuring policies, education models, and social context which leads to children's well-being. Especially this time with the COVID-19, which have been raised many of concern when we thinking about that previous model about physical health and social health. It has been really up like a really date problem and at the moment. So also as an educator and a parent, I have been worried. I wanted to know more. I wanted to understand like how we can support the children's well-being. And also I'm interested in these children who have all the keys to be well, to like function well, but they are still unhappy, unmotivated. And what are the things that make their problem in homes and in the classroom, even though that they are coming from the rich nation and everything seems to be in order. The key for understanding these well-doing children inactivity, their well-doing children unhappiness, and even a depression is to look more closer into the motivation. As we all know, the motivation is the force that drives our behavior and make us do the things what we do. There's even daily, there's multiple times when the motivation steps in. The motivation steps in when we are get up in the morning, open our computers, doing our homework or study or doing whatever, the motivation is there. Many research have proposed different ways of thinking about motivation, but one of the most common way is to look wherever the motivation arises from the outside, when we talk about extrinsic motivation, or inside, when we talk about intrinsic motivation. First, I open up shortly this extrinsic motivation. It means that when we are motivated to perform or do some sort of behavior or engage in some sort of activity because we want to earn a reward or avoid punishment. Here one will engage in behavior not because they enjoy it, but because they find it satisfying, but because they expect to get something in return and avoid something unpleasant. When we think about the school children, children in their school, we might find that there is a notable source of extrinsic motivation. They might be motivated to be in school because they want to get good grades, and this is pretty normal. And this happens also in every country. Another way to look motivation is to look it through the intrinsic motivation, which comes from inside. It means that when you're engaged in a behavior because you find it rewarding, you are performing an activity for its own sake, rather than desire from external reward. And this behavior itself, it's its own reward. And why understanding this motivation is so important when we talk about well-being and happiness is that the study shows that people who spend their time mostly with the intrinsically motivating things are more likely to be happy than those who are spending time with extrinsic motivated things. So the intrinsic motivation is key for what makes us happy, what makes us really well-being, and what then we like to do the things what we are doing. And also, when we look more closely about intrinsic motivation and understand what are the things that make up intrinsic motivation, we will come to more closer to understand the children's happiness. And then we have to open the term called self-determination theory. This self-determination theory is the work of two psychologists, Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. And this is the leading theory about human happiness and motivation. And in this self-determination theory, it is assumed that people initially seek growth, learning new things, and social connections. In the self-determination theory, there are three innate universal psychological needs that are fundamental for every one of us. They are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. The autonomy at first, in short, refers to the feeling of having control over your life and the freedom to make decisions that you want. The second, the competence, means that you experience success and capability in different tasks you do. And the last, the relatedness, in turn, it refers to the feelings or belonging socially. And this latest research showed that if the person can experience genuine autonomy, competence, and relatedness in his life, it predicts a happy life. Then again, if these psychological needs are non-fulfilled, a person experiences dissatisfaction and anxiety. We feel happy and motivated to do certain tasks, while others feel too challenging, intimidating, or appealing. Usually, the lack of autonomy, the competence, or relatedness leads to the absence of the intrinsic motivation. It is crucial to understand that the foundation of happy childhood and children's well-being doesn't lie in the expensive toy or matter. A child needs the presence and approval, love and attention of his parents. But in addition to these basic psychological needs, a sense of autonomy, competence and relatedness also contributes to happiness in a childhood. And happiness is not an insignificant matter. And happy, well-being person is creative, it is more active, it is more efficient, the person then it tolerates the stress more better and even get a few more years of life according to the research. And the child's well-being is supported by providing warmth, care, protection, and nourishment. And in addition to this, there's a need to provide stimulus and activities that nurture the children's innate development and creativity. But however, it's good to keep in mind that responding to the physical needs alone is not enough, and providing stimuli alone is not enough either. We need to understand that the children also have these basic psychological and individual needs. The world is now changing faster than ever before. The technology is evolving so rapidly that it's hard to keep up with all of the changes. It's not only challenging, but also it's really interesting to think about, for example, what kind of professionals today's children have when they grow up. And also, is there a need for the language skills or mathematics skills or geographic skills in the future? And if these traditional academic skills may not be so necessary for the future anymore, what is that we should focus on when we are raising and educating children today? So many education professionals agree that providing a healthy environment that fosters learning life skills and socio-emotional skills create a solid base for children as they grow into the adulthood. And we need to give children tools to recognize their relevance, provide experience of success, and foster their sense of belonging. In addition, by supporting the children's developing the self-awareness and the well-being, we help them to navigate the challenging and unpredictable environment. Last, I would like to say that I have done my research on the university and supporting the child's well-being and happiness. And then from this research, we have established at Onni Education. We wanted to share this information about how the competence, relatedness, and autonomy influence the inner motivation, and from there, from the well-being and happiness of our children. Our company's goal is to make sure that every child has a happy childhood, no matter what the part of the world the children is living. Our company, Onni Education, brings support, security, and research information about parenting and education and how to support child growth and development in the best possible way. Last year, we piloted our first product, how to raise happy kids web course, which have already had over 400 satisfied parents in Vietnam. And our main customers are schools and kindergarten who wants to ease their customers' life and make children's childhood more better. So if we do want to change the word for better, the education and training is the most effective way to do so. So thank you for your listening and interest, and find more about our company from onlyeducation.com and contacting me. And thank you for the opportunity to share this information about children's well-being and happiness.
Thank you, Mr. Olli. There are some questions posted by the participants, and I'll read them out to you.
Perfect.
Yeah. So the first question is, what do you think is missing in early childhood education in most schools today?
That's a really good question. And like I said, that I have been visiting many kindergartens and getting to know about early childhood education in different countries and cultures. I think the biggest thing that is missing is like this kind of like a stress-free environment when the children can be their own individuals and grow in their own pace. I'm big fan of like learning to play, and I love to speak about it and giving the concrete example how you can support that in your daily work. And I also understand that there comes a big demand from the society and from the schools and from the government and also from the parents that we have to teach certain things for the children in certain pace. But still, I believe that the big demand that we are dealing in many countries is that the children are facing too much stress in the kindergartens in their early years, and they cannot find the things what they are intrinsically motivated to do so. And I believe that there's many things that we as an educator and parents can do for this thing. We cannot change the curriculum and we cannot change the whole society, but we can change that how do we teach the children and how do we support them, and then what kind of things we are enhancing in the children's life.
Thank you. So when a child doesn't have a good early childhood education, what are the signs of it we see it in later years?
That's also a really good question, and to be honest, also for the thing that we know that not everything in the children's like a childhood, we do not know how they will affect for the children's future. In some of the cases, the children might face like a quite big struggles in their childhood, but they still might come up with a really good adulthood by having these couple of things, couple of supportive parents or supportive words from their teachers, which like enables and giving force for the children. But if we want to do the best start for our children, we would really need to give them like really good support and giving them opportunities to develop their strengths and skills. But we have to understand that we cannot change everything from our childhood. We cannot change the, like I said, the whole society around it. But we can change how do we do and how do we talk and say to our children. And there are many different ways that we can do and improve the children's childhood as well.
Mm-hmm. This is regarding boarding school education, Mr. Olli. Do you think putting a child in a boarding school at the age of 7 or 8 is good for the child?
Yeah, this is also interesting topic because there's a big differences about school starting age and what kind of education the children receive in certain age. As you might know that the school start here in Finland when the children turn to 7 years old. And before that we talk about early childhood education and there is 1 year's preschool education. But comparing to other countries, the school age are different, and also in India as well. In my opinion, that it doesn't matter what do we talk about school age, what age the school starts, but what kind of like education we are giving for the children in what age. We know from the physiological side of the children and theoretical side that the children's brains are functioning differently for example, under 7 years old children, and when they are a little bit older. So it all comes up to that what are the requirements for the children and what kind of education, what kind of demands we are giving the children in what age. But in my opinion, it's not that much about the school starting age or what kind of school it is. It's about what kind of education we are demanding and we are giving for the children.
We have read so much about Finland's education system, Mr. Olli. Why is Finnish education system so popular?
That's also a really good question. We are really happy about it, our education model, but we have to also understand that the Finnish education model, it has been built for the Finnish children living in the Finnish Finland and for the Finnish society. And there is no way that we can just take the Finnish education model and bring it to some other country and hope it would work, because every culture and countries is so different. But what is the thing that makes Finnish early childhood education and also the primary education so successful? That is the combination between different models. We have been taking the influence from the Montessori pedagogy, from the Steiner pedagogy, and from the different kind of pedagogical approach. And we have established a way to do this education in our own way. In the heart of Finnish education model is to respect the children on their individual ways of learning and motivate them to make them feel a love in learning. And this is the thing that I have also noticing that I have been visited in different countries, that even though that we cannot just transfer the Finnish education model to different country, but there's lots of things that definitely work in all around the world that we have been noticing. These things like of animal-based learning and learning through play and taking care of the child's individual ways of learning, the individualized learning, is the thing that can work in other countries, and they are also the thing that makes the Finnish education model so successful.
So in connection to that, what do you think? In which countries do you find most progressive ideas in education?
Most best ideas, did you mean, or?
Right.
Well, I have found good ways of educating and teaching in many countries. I also have found not so good ways to like educate children. And I have been working in the many countries, and I have learned something from each of them. And I think that still the main idea is about how do we see the children, and it's something common that I could say that in every country that I have been visited, I have been noticing that people who are working in the field of education, we share the same kind of like a delight and the same kind of like a passion towards education. But to be honest, I really enjoyed. Last year, I did my 2 months like long training for the education professionals in India. And one of the things that I found really interesting was that we share the similar kind of like thoughts and aims and also about like values. And I think the education comes from the values. If we share this kind of value base, then we can like share the more the practical side of like knowledge and the ways also.
That's great to know that you enjoyed the training session in India.
Definitely.
And yeah, so the other question goes like this. What do you think, is early technology usage affecting early school education?
Definitely. This is also one of the topics that interests me really much about thinking about this like technological devices. How do they affect our children? In my opinion, it's not that much about like a question, should we or should we not giving them to affect the children's life, because know that it is already a crucial part of the children's life. They are facing the technological devices everywhere, and when they're growing older, they need to know how to use them. But it comes to the fact that what do they use? What kind of info? What do they use? Do they only like watch it like passively, or do they use them like actively to receiving new kind of knowledge, to creating something? to use them in the purpose of the play and grow their imaginary. And this is the thing that we have to think about. What are the children aims when using the technology? And for my opinion, it's definitely a big important part of the children's life, and it should also to be a big important part of the education as well.
Nice, Mr. Olli. So you spoke about your company. What are some specific ways your company works with other schools to improve early school education?
Yes, perfect. So our company main aim is to provide parents with the skills and needs that they need to educate and support their children's optimal growth. But in Finland, we talk a lot about a term called parental partnership. It means that the schools, teachers, and also the kindergarten teachers have to work closely together with the parents. And the parents and the teachers, they have like a shared common goal, what they are working. And this is the thing that we want to ease and also give tools for the teachers that how they can support the parents to do the educational task. And our model in Onni education, Onni refers to Finnish word for happiness, for just to let you know. But we are training the teacher. We are giving a short training for the teachers about parental partnership and how they can support parents. And we also train the parents to understand more about what is the meaning of education, what is the meaning of the inner motivation. And that way we are making the easier with cooperation more better. And then also this is have been noticing that this is the good way to raise the value of the school, because the parents are more satisfied with the teacher's work when they understand it, what is the meaning of their work more better.
Great to know, Mr. Olli. We have now completed the round of questions. On behalf of
Perfect.
School Journal of Education and schoolreformer.com, we like to thank you for the talk and for patiently answering all the questions, sir. I like to also thank the participants in the meeting, and we will be closing this meeting now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.